behookedcrochet.com. I'm your host Brittany. In this video, I'm going to demonstrate how to crochet a star applique. You can get this free pattern at behookedcrochet.com, and you can find the link to that pattern in the description below. For this tutorial, you're going to need any worsted or medium weight yarn and a size 5mm hook. To begin our star appliques, we just need to create a slip knot. And now we want to chain 4. And we're going to be working in rounds for this project, and so at this point we need to join with the first chain in order to create a ring. Okay, and once you have that ring, you might just go ahead and open it up so that you can see the center of it, so you know where to work your stitches. To continue with round 1, we just want to start by chaining 3. And we're also going to make 2 more double crochets into the center of this ring. And now we want to chain 2. So what we're doing for round 1 is we're creating 5 groups of 3 double crochets, and so this chaining of 3 is going to count as a double crochet for this pattern. And in between each of those groups we're going to make 2 chains. And those chains are going to create points, and so we're essentially going to have a pentagon shape, but it's going to act as the foundation for our stars. So now that we've got our first group of 3 double crochet, we've made our 2 chains. Why don't you go ahead and repeat that 4 more times. Okay, so once you have 5 groups of 3 double crochets and you've got your 2 chains in between each group, we need to continue that pattern. So we need to make 2 more chains at the very end before we join with a slip stitch to the 3rd chain. So this is the 3rd chain from our chain 3 at the very beginning. We'll just join with a slip stitch, and that's going to finish off round 1. So you can see here how we've got our foundation for our star. And so round 2 is going to be the final round, and we're going to create all 5 of the points to our star. So there's actually a couple different ways that you can create points to a star. But for this pattern we're going to get a little creative, and we're going to do something that you might not actually be familiar with. What we want to do is where our hooks are, so this is where we had our slip stitch to finish off round 1, we're just going to jump right into creating 6 chains. Okay, and so what we're going to do is we're going to work back down this chain, and we're going to do so in a gradual way. So we're going to start with the smaller stitches and gradually change to the taller stitches, and that's going to fill in this empty space right here. So you want to skip the first chain that's right there next to the hook and make a single crochet into the second chain from the hook. Okay, and now make a half double crochet into the next chain, and a double crochet into the next chain, and a treble crochet into the next. So remember, we need to wrap 2 times to make a treble crochet. And we're going to make another treble crochet into the last chain. Okay, so you can see we've got the shape that we want. Now we just need to attach it. And so we've got this chain 2 gap space. That's the perfect foundation for us to join. So we just want to insert our hook into that gap space and make a slip stitch. Okay, and it's really as simple as that. We're going to repeat that for each of the remaining sides of the star. And so again, we just want to chain 6. Okay, now single crochet to the second chain from the hook, half double crochet, double crochet, treble crochet, and treble crochet again. Now slip stitch again into that next chain 2 gap space and repeat. Okay, and once you have made the last point to your star, then we'll just go ahead and slip stitch into that chain 2 gap space to finish it off. And we can go ahead and bind off. And I just like to pull that tail through the loop that was on my hook in order to bind off. And now all that's left to do is to weave in our ends, and as you can see, your points are going to try to curl up on you. And that's completely normal. That's just the nature of the stitches and the tension that we've got here. And so you can actually finger block most of that out, but I would also recommend wet blocking, and that's just simply where you would pin it down to, I use athletic flooring tiles, and then you just saturate it with some room temperature water and let it dry overnight, and that will completely flatten it out. So let me go ahead and demonstrate how to weave in these tails. So when I work my first round, I actually work my stitches over the tail. So if you do that, then you're safe to go ahead and trim that off. If not, I would recommend that you weave it in underneath these first stitches. And then that just leaves us with the one tail from the end. And what I like to do is, you can see there's a tiny bit of a gap because where we started the very first point, we weren't really in that gap space like we were with all the other two. And so this one kind of has a tendency to be a little bit more crooked. And so what I like to do to fix that is just take my darning needle and insert it just right into, this is actually the third chain from the chain 3 at the beginning of the round 1. So I just put my darning needle directly into that stitch and then just kind of pull that tight. And when you do that, it'll kind of bring things together and it'll make it a little bit more uniform. And so from here, I also like to work this tail underneath these stitches here because it's nice and dense, and we don't have to worry about the yarn working itself back out, and it's definitely not visible underneath this thick circle of stitches here. So just work that under for, you know, about a time or two around, depending on how long your tail is. And that is all there is to it. This concludes our tutorial today on the Crocheted Star Applique. Please stay tuned for more free patterns and video tutorials at behookedcrochet.com.